Hi, welcome to Sandra's Sisterhood. I'm Carrie, and this is a YouTube channel for the single and childless, not by choice person. Our video today is a video that's part of the series of Is This Feeling Normal When You Are Single and or Childless, Not by Choice? The feeling that we're talking about today is anger. And if you want to watch videos that are about the feeling of bitterness and envy, then I will put them in the link below and make sure to check those out. After this video, I'll have 3 more videos related to feelings, resentment, sadness, and depression. So, is anger a normal feeling to have when you're experiencing being single and or childless, not by choice? So yes. And one of the things that I'm really putting out there with these feelings videos is that there are no bad feelings. Kind of like how the nutrition and weight loss industry kind of talks about how there are no bad foods. You just want to make sure that you don't eat foods that are really high in calories or really nutrition deficient. You don't want to eat those every single day for ongoing periods of time. The same is true for feelings, right? Experiencing anger is normal. In fact, it's a healthy feeling that if we don't allow ourselves to experience it, then we have all kinds of other problems, including can be physical problems as well. So, yes, anger is a normal feeling, but we don't want to get stuck in it, right? And we don't want to have anger control us every single day for long periods of time. You have every right to feel angry. You likely didn't consider that not having children would be something that would happen to you. It's not something that, particularly if you're a woman, it's not something that is talked about. It's not something that you are kind of prepared around. Being a mother in particular isn't even something that's seen as a choice. It's just something that occurs. It's a natural state of getting older. It's part of those milestones of hopefully adulthood that everybody goes through. And the idea that you have to actively think about, well, what if I don't have kids, just doesn't cross our minds and usually doesn't cross the people around us, their minds as well. Again, there's no indication from the people around us that it might not happen. Elders, for example, if you're a part of church communities, for example, even in like medical communities, it's not something that's seen that's talked about very often. In fact, we more often hear people falling into parenthood unexpectedly versus unexpectedly not having children. There's lots of talk out there about how to prevent yourself from having kids before you're ready, right? And because that is so drilled into us, and I'm not saying it shouldn't be, but because that's so drilled into us, that's kind of the only viewpoint that we think about. We think, oh, it's super easy to get pregnant. Everybody gets pregnant. If you don't try not to get pregnant, then you will. And so that's the environment that we're around, right? And so when you then try and have kids or you get older and you want to start thinking about that, the idea then that you're going to experience problems with it is mind blowing. Or the idea that circumstances aren't going to arise that are going to kind of put you in a space that you're going to have kids in the way that you wanted to have them is devastating. And we oftentimes, after we feel like significant sadness or devastation, um, again, the stages of grief include anger. It's a feeling that how could it not come up? Now, the feeling of anger can be really consuming, especially as we hear people accidentally getting pregnant, not trying to get pregnant, and it happens, right? People in different circumstances than us just kind of constantly feeling like they're getting pregnant. That can feel really unfair, which then leads to anger. It can also be really, um, it can elicit a lot of anger feelings because we live in a society, and this is across most cultures. Obviously, I can't speak for every culture. I'm in the United States, so I'll speak for this culture, but I do believe this is one of those things that really kind of crosses all sort of socioeconomic backgrounds, um, racial backgrounds, um, cultural backgrounds, right? Where the expectation is that you're going to have kids. And so most people are interacting with you in a way as if you are going to have children instead of, it's like, it's a matter of when, not if, right? And when people constantly interact with you that way, asking you when you're going to have them, why don't you have them, that can be really irritating, right? And really frustrating because you're constantly having to explain something that you really shouldn't have to explain. Essentially, the people around you don't view it as something that you can't do, or maybe even that you don't want to do. And so they ask you questions from that mindset, and that can be very, very frustrating. And it's not only people, right? It's the institutions around us. For some people, the workplace assumes that of you. You might have a religious entity or a religious institution that assumes that of you. Social groups assume that of you. Your government oftentimes assumes that of you. So feeling anger that your life is somehow seen as deviant or outside the norm, and that people really don't even consider the life that you're living. Sometimes what gets me feeling a little bit angry is I sometimes definitely feel like people view my life and they're like, wow, she's single and she doesn't have kids and she's in her 40s. That's my worst nightmare. And I'm like, why is that your worst nightmare? I understand that you might not want that by choice. I didn't want it by choice, PS. And it doesn't mean that my life is pathetic. And so I feel anger when people project that onto me. You keep that to yourself, is what I'd like to tell people. Um, Feeling anger around these situations is healthy, it's reasonable. It also doesn't mean that you're ungrateful. It doesn't mean that you're unreasonable. It doesn't mean that you're being too rigid. You know, it means that you're somebody who is acknowledging what you're feeling, you're facing it head on, and feeling angry is in proportion to what you're experiencing, right? So, how do you manage this anger? How do you manage this very healthy feeling that it's perfectly okay to experience? It's reasonable to experience. If you're not experiencing it right now, I think it's generally a part of the stages of grief. So you may even experience it in your dreams first, right? Sometimes when people are experiencing a heavy grief, they sort of really experience the sadness sort of in their day to day, and then in their dreams, that's where they can experience a lot of the anger. So just be on the lookout for that and pay attention to that. Ways to manage it. If you feel like you're getting stuck in anger, I always encourage seeing a therapist, possibly a coach, if you feel like that you're not getting if you're not experiencing any symptoms related to mental health. But I do think a therapist could be really helpful. And I'm well aware that not everybody has access to a therapist, either shortages in your area or budgetary reasons. So here are some other more practical things that you can do in order to manage the anger. And that is engage in activities to help you express your anger. We live in a culture where, particularly for women, there's not a lot of things out there in representation that show women being angry in a really healthy way. And so, because of that, a lot of us aren't taught that. We don't see it. And so, we suppress it and sort of stuff that down. Here are some things to consider. Again, therapists, like we said before, but also consider a creative pursuit, right? Like journaling about your anger, painting about your anger, drawing about your anger, something that gets what's inside out. Okay. The other thing to consider is, and you may roll your eyes at this, but hear me through, is exercise, something that can physically get you moving. Maybe that's boxing, right? There are like boxing boutiques, like not boutiques, but like boxing studios that aren't necessarily like in a ring where you're gonna like hit somebody. But near me, there is a exercise place called Rumble where you go in, you hit a bag, you lift some weights, they play Rihanna or whatever while you're doing it. And it's cathartic and it's fun. And it just releases sort of this pent up stuff. Prior to my hip getting to the point where I couldn't do that, I loved doing that after work. And part of my hip replacement was being able to get back to those things. Spin class can be another thing. Again, it's something that you can just immerse yourself in the music. You can work hard and you can go. And sometimes that little feeling of exhaustion can be really helpful. So, anger is normal. It is absolutely normal. And how can you manage it? Therapist, exercise, journaling, or creative pursuit where you express what's inside outside. So, keep watching Saunders Sisterhood and subscribe for more videos for the single and childless, not by choice person, and continue to stay tuned for more videos related to feelings and are these uncomfortable feelings normal? So subscribe and I'll see you in the next video.